All right, AP World historians, welcome to Unit 7, Topic 7.14, Economy in the Interwar Period. So, what do I need to know, Mr. D, for Topic 7.4? Put on your listening caps as we tell the little kindergartners and focus. Here's what you need to know. In between World War I and World War II, there were a number of large economic events that occurred in which powerful governments responded in a variety of ways. Some responded to controlling where the state controlled their economy more, but to a lesser extent compared to some other states that used a totalitarian, authoritative way to gain complete control of their economy in this interwar period. So let's see what we're talking about here. Our learning objective is to explain how different governments responded to the economic crisis after 1900. Well, what are we referring to? Let's zoom into the specific historical developments, people. Economic crisis, we're talking about the Great Depression, okay? And a response to the Great Depression is where governments began to take a more active role in economic life. What are some of the examples of those active roles? In America, FDR's New Deal. In Italy and in Germany, the fascist corporatist economy. Governments with strong popular support in Brazil and Mexico. And in the Soviet Union, Stalin's 5-year plans were all reactions to the economic crisis called the Great Depression in the inter period between World War I and World War II. So, again, by the end of this lesson, you're going to explain how Italy and Germany reacted to the Great Depression. I'm adding in the Soviet Union as well. And the United States. So how did the United States, Italy, Germany, and the Soviet Union react to the Great Depression from an economic perspective? Let's take a look. Well, what happened after World War I? After World War I, there was a period of mass consumerism. World War I saw death and destruction on a scale that's arguably immeasurable. And people suffered, and World War I came to an end. So with people who had a means, the rising middle class, had a means to consume, to purchase and buy, they wanted instant gratification to improve their lives. And wow, the Industrial Revolution put out all types of technological inventions that made people's lives easier and more fun, more enjoyment. So you've got mass consumerism, artistic creativity, an explosion where women, middle-class women, they gain new participation in popular culture. Women in Germany, Great Britain, Turkey, the US, they gained the right to vote. That's huge. Important achievements in science. Albert Einstein's the theory of relativity, the knowledge of the atomic structure, understanding of genetics. The US economy boomed like never before. The assembly line, the Model T car, people are traveling, vacations, fashion, let the good times roll. Buy, 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 buy. There was something else that was introduced, especially in the United States of America, credit. You mean I can buy this now even though I can't afford it and I pay later? Buy, 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 buy. Here we go. So you have the assembly line, the Model T, you have the females, fashion, Model T, vacations, the explosion of art and architecture, popular culture, the ball game, the racetrack, the boxing match. You have changes also here. You have flapper girls, art and architecture. At one point in the United States of America with cultural faux pas, in some places illegal, where women could not show their legs. And now this is artistic expression like never before. And then what happens? People buy, the factories, the corporations make more, make more, make more. They make too much. People stop buying. Companies become nervous. You get economic speculation. People pull their money out of the stock market. Small banks that borrow money from larger banks cannot pay back. Small banks foreclose on people who have small loans and housing loans. People go homeless, people lose jobs, big companies shut down, banks shut down, your life savings inside of a bank wiped out, major corporations close, and this spreads all over the world, and you get the Great Depression. This is a consequence of wealth inequality, the unregulated stock market where people are buying, selling, and trading in a way like wildfire that people have never seen before. Too much, too fast. A lack of consumer spending and business investments scared everybody. People pull their money out of the stock market, and that created the scare. It caused unemployment, a contracting economy, gets smaller, social instability, a loss of faith in traditional government, and major responses to economic crises. So now, how do governments around the world respond to this global economic depression? We're on slide 10. So the government responded to the Great Depression in a variety of ways, okay? Following World War I, the onset of Great Depression, governments began to take a more active role. The United States, active role. Italy, Germany, the Soviet Union, the governments decided to control the economy more than before. So Germany experienced hyperinflation due to the Treaty of Versailles. The value of their dollar evaporated to the point where people used money in Germany during the Great Depression to insulate their walls as wallpaper. Their money was so useless, and their images of them wallpapering their walls with paper cash. Okay, that's hyperinflation. Italy did not feel they received their fair share during World War I as well. So there was a lot of resentment, and it caused economic changes. Go to slide 11. And you can see how children were affected. Go to slide 12. This was the reality of the situation in the United States, where people became so poor, it was common to sell children to have the rest of your family survive. Okay? Okay. Go to slide 13. Let's start with our first example. You have the United States, you have Italy, you have Germany, and you have the Soviet Union. So, an example of why a country might alter their economies. America was powerful, market-based economy. You know this, free trade, it's a market-based economy. So America was a powerful market-based economy based off of free market until the Great Depression. Once that happened, in the 1930s, conditions got so bad that American government had to create programs that went against free market trade. So programs based off socialism, social programs to help people that can't help themselves. So you're using taxpayer money to help people that can't help themselves. It was part of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, whenever you see FDR, part of his New Deal. Unemployment, Social Security were two major programs under FDR's New Deal, okay? So therefore, they were no longer a pure market-based economy. It's now called a mixed economy. There's some socialist ideas inside of this free market economy. So the government in America grew, and they hired people in order to give people jobs. So the power of the state took more control over the economy in the United States of America. That's what you need to know. Slide 14. Everybody, what happened in Italy and Germany? Well, fascism took hold in Italy and Germany. Fascism was created by Benito Mussolini. Fascism is an ideology that's based on autocratic, totalitarian, total control of the state over every aspect of society, with a fundamental racial aspect involved, racial superiority. So this was created by Benito Mussolini in Italy in the 1920s, a nationalistic totalitarian form of government that places the state over the individual. So they took almost total control. Fascist governments prohibit criticism of the fascist governments they're against criticism in any form of the government, any resistance. So Hitler eventually embraces this philosophy, fascism, and they create a system of control over their economies called corporatist economic policies. Corporatist economic policies. Their influence over their economy is so heavy that all capitalist businesses bow to their every demand. So it's a little different. It's different than America, right? The American government just expanded to offer more socialist programs to help people that couldn't help themselves and give them their jobs. But in Italy and Germany, these totalitarian rulers with threats and heavy influence, they forced all corporations to bow to their every need and desire. So a much higher level of control to a greater extent. And let's look what happened. Slide 15, let's go to the USSR, the Soviet Union. So under communism, they created something called a command economy, okay? So communists had total control over their economic system. An economic activity that's controlled by a central authority and assigns goals and allots raw materials to enterprises rather than by market mechanism. This isn't free trade. This is not competition. The state itself took control of the entire economy. They made goals and they forced people to help achieve those goals at every level of society. Okay? This is total control of the economy. So now what did that look like in the Soviet Union? Go to slide 16. Stalin, the totalitarian leader of the Soviet Union, set up a series of 5-year plans. The first, he wanted to focus on collectivizing agriculture and developing heavy industry. This person, Stalin, wanted to industrialize in a way that no one's ever seen before because he wanted to do it at such a fast pace. You can make an argument that Stalin's 5-year plans caused death and suffering on a scale you can argue that's possibly greater than what Hitler did with the Holocaust, because of the famine that occurred in the Ukraine and at the expense of almost his entire rural population of his country. Millions and millions of people died, okay, to complete and achieve these 5-year plans, in which he was very successful in his first 5-year plan. All right. So now you have the way that the United States increased control to a certain extent by expanding the government and offering some socialist programs to help people that can't help themselves. Italy and Germany increased their control over the economy through corporatist policies, heavier control. And then you have communism, Stalin, his 5-year plans of a total control of a command economy. Okay, people, let's go. Slide 17. Your prompt. LEQ prompt. Develop an argument that evaluates the extent to which one or more states control their economies in this period. This is very straightforward. I hope you feel confident, clear and confident of what you have to do. Now, I understand you would say, well, it says develop an argument that evaluates the extent to which one or more. I only have to mention one. No, it implies you have to mention what we just talked about, okay? More than one. To guarantee the point, mention all 4. Grab a spot to create your theses. You can scroll back to the previous slides to help you. This is one example thesis, okay? So, take a look at how simple this is. The extent to which one or more states control their economies after 1900 varied. You can say that. It doesn't have to be to a great extent or to a lesser extent if you can see many differences, okay? You can say it differed in a variety of ways. You can say it varied. Some of you have that they were different, right? To a great extent. Well, the reason for this is because Italians and Germans utilized corporatist fascism, which put the state above the individual, while the USA increased the size of their federal government under a mixed economy with FDR's New Deal. And the Soviet Union also used the state to control their command economy under communism, implementing Stalin's 5-year plans. This is one way that you would get the point in the rubric. After 1900, some states increased their control over their economies to a lesser extent, while others greatly expanded their influence. So you can say all these governments increased their control, Some to a lesser extent, others to a greater extent. Well, the reason for this is because the USA increased the size of their federal government to a lesser extent, using a mixed economy with FDR's New Deal, compared to, I have to say compared to say a lesser extent, because that is the largest grip of control that the government ever had over the economy in America. So you can't say to a lesser extent unless you say compared to these other states that just had totalitarian control, right? So compared to the Italians and Germans who utilized corporatist fascism, the totalitarian state, the Soviet Union implemented complete control over the command economy under communism using Stalin's 5-year plan. Questions? Many of you had this argument. Some of you had the first argument. These two arguments are valid.